Welcome once again to Musings by Danon. Today we're going to continue our discussion on the different archetypes in Commander. One of the most complicated archetypes to pilot is Aristocrats, due to the numerous moving pieces involved as well as several triggers. It can be difficult explaining to new players why you'd want to sacrifice your own creatures, but that's exactly what Aristocrats is trying to do. Before we get started, please like and subscribe for more content. There's a lot of overlap between the Sacrifice archetype and the Aristocrats archetype. For the most part, Sacrifice is looking to gain value by sacrificing their own permanents, or cause opponents to also sacrifice their stuff so they can steal with cards like Turgid, God of Fright, or replay their own cards over and over again, like with Muldrotha the Gravetide. Corvold, Fakehurst King, is a commander that gains a ton of value from Sacrifice, and is currently the most popular Sacrifice commander on EDH Rec. Aristocrats, on the other hand, is looking to sacrifice their own creatures to win the game. Most often, you're sacrificing token creatures, or creatures that you can get back from the graveyard easily. Aristocrats takes its name from cards like Cartel Aristocrat and Falconwrath Aristocrat, both of which reward a player for sacrificing. As a general rule, Sacrifice is harder to interact with, but more susceptible to board wipes. If you try to destroy a permanent controlled by a Sacrifice player, they can usually just sacrifice it for value before your spell has a chance to resolve. Aristocrats tends to be more susceptible to spot removal, as they have permanents they want to keep and others they don't care about as much. However, Aristocrats doesn't mind being board wiped as much because of all the death triggers the deck runs. Both decks almost always have black in their color identity. Most Sacrifice payoffs and Aristocrat creatures are black after all. You can exclude black if you're wanting to try something new. A mono-red Goblin Sacrifice deck is a lot of fun to pilot, but the deck is much easier to build with black rather than without. My LGS started a new Commander League, and I was tasked with building my wife a new Commander deck. The restrictions were a budget of no more than $100, not counting the Commander, and you had to pick one of the new commanders from Midnight Hunt, either the main set or the precons. My wife chose Liesa, the Forgotten Archangel, as her commander. I wanted to challenge myself and try to keep the list under $75. So let's take a look at our commander. Liesa, the Forgotten Archangel, is a 5-mana 4/5 legendary angel with flying and lifelink. She also says, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step, and, if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. She's an excellent Aristocrats enabler and a significant stacks piece all in one. With Liesa on board, we can sacrifice as many non-token creatures as we want, and they'll all come back to our hand. So while building around her, let's keep our deck building checklist in mind. 50 mana sources, usually split between 37 lands and 13 pieces of ramp, 10 pieces of card advantage, 8 to 10 pieces of spot removal, 2 to 3 board wipes, 2 pieces of graveyard hate, 1 sudden I win card. With that in mind, building an Aristocrats deck is not simply a matter of following a checklist. You need 3 ingredients for this recipe, and the ratios for each is up to debate. First of all, you need sack outlets, things to which you can sacrifice your creatures. Secondly, you need sacrifice payoffs. Why are we sacrificing these creatures? Thirdly, you need creatures to be sacrificed. Ideally, you want token generators for this, but Liesa doesn't care as much about that as other Aristocrat commanders do. Because Liesa returns creatures to hand, I decided to focus on cards that, when sacrificed, would leave behind a token creature. This leaves behind a blocker that can later be sacrificed for further value. If budget wasn't a concern, I would have loved to include Anointed Procession, but for now, Teysa Karlov will have to do. Along with her, we've got Seraph of the Scales, Doomed Traveler, Doomed Dissenter, Hunted Witness, Orzhov Enforcer, and Ministrant of Obligation. For additional token generation, we have Thalis, Reverent Medium, Regna the Redeemer, Requiem Angel, and a Field of Souls. Finally, an Ornithopter for free cast value. For sack outlets, we've got Viscera Seer, Woe Strider, Cartel Aristocrat, Krav the Unredeemed, and Ashnod's Altar. And for our payoffs, we have Zulaport Cutthroat, Cruel Celebrant, Bastion of Remembrance, Falconwrath Noble, Vindictive Vampire, Corpse Knight, and Sir Conrad the Grim. With all the life we'll be gaining, Sanguine Bond will serve as a nice extra damage dealer. Our interaction package includes Fracture, Mortify, Disenchant, Despark, Plaguecrafter, Utter End, and Return to Dust as traditional spot removal. Butcher and Malakir will keep our opponents in line, Archon of Justice is repeatable, if a bit expensive spot removal, and Swiftfoot Boots will help keep our commander alive. Finally, Liesa Shroud of Dusk is an awesome stacks piece, and should help slow the game down, which is just what Aristocrats wants. Rounding off our interaction is board wipes, consisting of Kaya's Wrath, Fumigate, and Cleansing Nova. For card draw, we have more sack outlets in Plumb the Forbidden, Costly Plunder, Village Rites, and Smothering Abomination. To return creatures who died if our commander wasn't on board, we have Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord and Sun Titan. Midnight Reaper and Mentor of the Meek both serve as repeatable card advantage, while Sign in Blood serves as more traditional card advantage. I've already mentioned Crab as a sack outlet, but he also serves as card advantage. For traditional mana ramp, I've already mentioned Ashnod's Altar, but we also have a Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, both marble and charcoal diamonds, Orzhov Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, Mindstone, Orzhov Locket, and Commander's Sphere. Counting our commander, we have 32 creatures in our deck, so we're running both Oketra's and Bontu's Monument. Finally, we have Solemn Simulacrum as additional sacrifice fodder, and Burnished Heart, both of which can be recast every turn if our commander's on board. Our land base is pretty simple. We're running a whole ton of cheap comes-into-play tapped dual lands, a command tower and an exotic orchard, Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse for mana fixing, a Myriad Landscape for mana acceleration, 13 swamps, and 11 plains. So let's see how our deck stacks up to the checklist. For mana sources, we have 52. A little heavy, but we want to recast our sacrificed creatures every turn, so that's fine. Card advantage, we have 10, counting our commander. Spot removal, we're at 9, which is right where we want to be. 3 board wipes to slow the game down. No graveyard hate, which could end up being a problem, but we want to use our graveyard, so it's fine. With enough payoffs, each of our board wipes can be an I win card. All in all, with the exception of graveyard hate, I think we're in an okay spot. If anything, much of our removal will be used to target other people's graveyard hate. We don't want them to hurt our graveyard, as our commander wants it left alone. There are many ways you can take this deck, but I'm not going to be doing any upgrades. As I stated earlier, this needs to stay a budget deck for the next couple of months while the Commander League at our local game store is happening. If my wife does end up really liking this commander, we can look at doing upgrades for it in the future. Thanks for tuning in. I really love the Aristocrats archetype. It's a lot of fun to play, and there are so many interesting lines, both in deck building and in gameplay. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cute Stuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, there's a link to her Fiverr page below, along with a link to the deck list. Please like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you all again next time.